G'day, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rard. And today we have a very special guest, David Fairley, CEO and founder of Website Properties. Now, the reason why today's so interesting is I've been wanting to interview David for quite some time because he's a bit of a legend in our industry. And I'm guessing many of you probably haven't heard about David and what his background is, but he has been buying and selling websites for over 20 years. Not only that, as a professional, he was one of the first people in this industry to set up a website brokerage firm. And what's really interesting is David has not only obviously 20 years experience, but also himself. He started out buying and selling websites like a lot of you are. He's done some pretty legendary deals in his own portfolio. But what we want to hear and learn off David today is I guess, a veteran's experience, deep experience, David, that you have in this industry. 20 years, I think you can teach anyone listening to this podcast. You're going to learn about what David's seen over the 20 years, some of the amazing deals that he's done himself, and the trends, and in particular, what's happening out there in the marketplace now. So, David, thank you so much for coming along. I finally got you on our podcast here. It is definitely a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thanks for that wonderful introduction, Matt. I appreciate that. I'm happy to be of assistance and service to your listeners, and no sense in going down this path and hitting the pitfalls unnecessarily. So hopefully we can navigate people through that and pull back the curtain, as it were, as far as what the opportunities are in the space.
Yeah, because what's really interesting, David, as you and I were talking the other day, you've got this 20 years experience. We're not guys, anyone listening here, we're not talking selling little tiny sites or anything. David specializes in selling multi-million-dollar websites, but sells a whole range from a couple of 100,000 up into the millions and up into 8 figures as well. So for David, as you know, we have a wide range of listeners, including a lot of high net worths and people thinking about where do we invest our money. But generally, most of our listeners are kind of new to this digital asset class, this investment class. So that's what I wanted to get out of you today, a bit about where you see the marketplace going, the opportunities for someone if they've got some significant funds or maybe they're wondering where to invest. So can we start with just quickly, Website Properties? What I'm hoping I summarize there nicely what you guys specialize in, but do you want to, let's hear it in your words, what you guys specialize in.
Right. Well, so Website Properties was formed out of just experience, really. I was, as you mentioned, I was online. I got on in 1995, 96, online early days, I guess, of the internet, and started a hammock business, which ended up turning into hammocks.com because I ended up acquiring that domain name, and that was really good for branding. I ended up exiting in 2002, and I had hired a couple brokers that made me prepay, and then didn't do anything. They were really quite incompetent, to be honest, and didn't really understand. There wasn't really too many people understanding, the fundamentals of internet-based businesses. So I wasn't, it wasn't that shocking. So I ended up representing myself, and I sold to a company that wrote me a huge contract and then burned me on the back end. So it wasn't the happiest of experience. But what happened afterwards was just me. It was the early days of Google, and there was a lot of latent content sites out there that were not monetized. So I was going around quickly snapping up and buying small businesses. I ended up probably acquiring somewhere around 50 over the course of about 5 or 6 years, and just basically monetize them with AdSense and ClickBank, affiliate programs. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it now, but that was what we did in the back in the day. And I'd have, 15, 16 sites at one time that were all passive, that were giving me a pretty good stream. And once I had run them for a year and a half, I would sell them and flip them. So by, ultimately doing that led people to sort of wanting to know if I could sell their sites, and friends and colleagues. And so that turned in organically into Website Properties, formally around 2000. And I think 2005, 2006, I started really, formalizing that, although I had been selling other, sites since then. But yeah, it probably goes back maybe 2004, 2005 when we established Website Properties. Since that time, we've sold somewhere around 600 sites, somewhere between 500 and 600 million in gross volume. So I guess, yeah, we have quite a bit of quite a bit of experience. And also, like, just to mention, like, we've sold mostly businesses, and it's probably the average business is somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, but we've certainly sold a lot of smaller businesses, in the low, six figures. It really just depends on whether the business is solid and we like it. And, if we like the seller, then we'll work with them. But that's kind of where it's evolved to. Like, of course, we're always looking for more established deals, sophisticated buyers. But as far as an opportunity to invest in the space, I mean, that's something that we can talk about next. But as far as how this is sort of evolved into a new asset class for investors, so that's the history behind where I came from and what I've done. I'll just pause there for a second, then we can dive into sort of the investment opportunity.
I do want to touch on something. If you heard David's story there, $500 million or $600 million in website sales, guys. This is so you're a very, you're quite a specialist mergers and acquisitions company, really, because I notice a lot of your team members, they're all entrepreneurs as well. You guys, I'd say from my observations over the years, and I've followed you for many, many years on your newsletter and looking at the listings that you get, because of your deep experience, that seems to go through the whole of your, the ethos of website properties. Your background is content sites, like where we all started, except you were 10 years or 20 years nearly in front of everyone. You're pretty much at the beginning of the internet. 1996, that was the Wild West days, far out. And I noticed, David, you own I do want to mention this to our listeners. David has owned some seriously big domain names. So hammocks.com, strollers.com, drums.com, unicorns.com. And as you just heard, probably another 50 other legendary websites out there. You're one of the first people to really get in this game, buying and selling websites.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the Wild West. I mean, after I sold hammocks.com, I was literally just buying website domains and creating niche sites and selling them like pre-cash flow, which was, when I look back on that now, it seems insane, but people were just like so hungry to get on. And so we got set them up and away they went. So I mean, it's a little bit of an OG, but that doesn't, I'm not wearing a badge of honor. There's other operators, other companies that have gone on and have grown outpaced us and grown. We've kind of deliberately stayed small because it's more of a boutique. It's not quantity, it's quality. Yeah. We want to work with people that we like and with businesses that we believe in. And, we're not really, operating a puppy mill. It's about the quality of appraising the business and valuations, and then, the marketing and just management. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, we're pretty agnostic with the business as long as it's online and it's, it's doing well and it's a viable business to sell to someone, because
let's now have a look at where you've seen this industry evolve into, and particularly because of your experience with your boutique website brokerage firm. I'm presuming when you start out, you would have started out selling smaller business, because 20 years ago, like you said, no one was doing website sales. But so I'm presuming it was kind of small time buyers. But now, as you've watched this evolve, who are the main sorts of website buyers that you're dealing with on a regular basis? Because who are you selling these 7-figure websites to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, we've been selling 7-figure businesses all along. It's just that as the industry developed and evolved, there's just people that were running businesses longer, up and running for 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And so it just, there's more sophisticated people coming in and good operators. So it's really been, the deals have improved and grown certainly over the years, but the main investors, I mean, there's really a cross section. Sometimes you have people from corporations that are in the corporate world that have, saved, and they're just tired of that and they want to operate their own business. You've got just high net worth individuals just trying to diversify. You've got portfolio companies and private equity companies that are just accumulating and aggregating, like all e-commerce businesses or Amazon businesses, or in this case, content-based businesses that are easy to operate. And so, and then you've got, mom and pops, you've got dads buying businesses for their wives or for their spouse or for their kids. You've got internet entrepreneurs that are just like they're regularly buying and selling and flipping. And it's that's kind of what I did. The business model of investing in digital assets like this is very, it's starting to get a little bit more traction in the last 5 years as sort of another asset class. If you think about where things are at now, the way to look at this is internet, an online business gives you, first of all, you own it, you own the asset, you own the cash flow, and you can control it. And generally when you're buying a business right now, the multiples are a little bit lower, but let's just say on average, a business is selling for 3 times their net yearly, most recent net profit. So you're essentially, as an investor, you're basically, if you're paying 3x, you're getting, and you get that same return, you're going to get a 33% return on investment of something you control the cash flow for. And you can obviously you want to buy businesses that have a solid history. So you're not going to get something that, suddenly loses its revenue streams. But in general, there's not a lot of places where you can go. I mean, real estate seems like it's like a lot of the assets out there, stocks, equities, real estate, they're kind of in bubbly territory. It's a bit scary to start thinking about buying there. And then, so you can buy something and be down 40%, and it might take you 5 or 10 years. Like after the NASDAQ the bubble popped in 2001, it took till 2015 to get back up to that. So you never want to, not exit at the top. This whole thing about riding things out is nonsense. It's like you're better off, trying to time the market and whatnot. But in the end, investing in an online business is really just, it provides you diversification. If you have assets in real estate, I think real estate's important. I think, any commodity based asset is important in this environment. Quite frankly, the macro environment is deteriorating globally. I think, just with COVID and all the money printing that went on has diluted people's value of cash. You're basically, cash is in your bank account is, if you're smart, it's making 4.5%, 5% in treasury yields. And if you're just leaving it in your bank, you're making 0.5%. So you're losing 7% really a year in your cash. So throwing into real estate at a peak, that unless you're buying, real estate that you're getting cash flow on like a renter, it's you're playing with a lot of risk in your equity. And the stock market just, that's just a fool's errand. It's just dangerous, I think, to play at this point. And there's certainly a lot of macro evidence showing that we're already in a recession. Europe's in a recession. We're in a recession. There's a lot of stuff out there that shows that we're going to go into that. So I think you have to look at this as a calculated area so where do I want to invest my money? Something that I can control, that it has good cash flow, and I can sell afterwards, for capital gains. So that's why investing in digital businesses is really interesting, I think. And again, you have to do your due diligence, but it's online businesses operate 24/7. They're global. You own and you can control it, and you can build value over years with that cash flow, get a 30 to 40% return, and then sell it again, and hopefully make a capital gain. So it's really an interesting I think way to diversify excess capital that's otherwise just eroding.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about your perspective is, for anyone listening, you got to think where David's come from. Remember, David's not your average person here. 20 years experience watching and being personally involved in sales, well, more than 20 years with his own portfolio. And David, you think about it for you, I was just in there thinking, like you said, you've been through the dot-com crash, you've been through the GFC, and since 1996, you've seen a lot. And obviously, you're still very passionate about the website asset class. When you look back over that journey, I guess that for you know what can happen during these crashes. Well, actually, let's look at some of your experience here. During the recession, say with content sites, what's your thought? Let's just say we're not allowed to give financial advice or anything like that sort of a thing, and no one knows the future. But like Warren Buffett does say, the chance of a recession is 100%. We just don't know when. But it's certainly not looking good out there at the moment. So thinking, imagine you had $1 million to invest, or a client with $1 million to invest, and look, knowing what you know about website assets, what could you tell them about, say, a content site based on your experience? Not giving outright advice here, but based on your experience, say back in 2008, and then watching the growth of these website assets. How well do you think they'll handle a recession?
Well, these type of sites are generating passive income through ads, and so you have to think about, is ad spending going to take a hit during a recession? Sometimes it does in some industries, and others it goes up. So I think it just depends on what niche you're choosing. But I think it's important to make sure that you're buying a niche that's not, if you're buying a niche for luxury goods in a where you're likely going into a it could be a serious recession, and who knows how long it's going to last. Like, I don't think you want to be super myopic. I think you want to find something that people are interested in, that has some sort of resistance or resilience. It's more of I think you have to look at necessity items. Anything like if you look at times like this, like gardening is where food prices are going up. People are like, I want to grow my own food. So there's a niche that you would look at and go like, I'm gonna do a content site, or I'm gonna buy a content site, on products that help, apartment dwellers, have little gardens or something, like something super niche that's going to, is going to do well in a recession. Like I have a client right now selling, dehydrated food, food stores like that last for 10 years, and they're from Utah, so they're Mormons. But, like that business just pumps whenever there's, fear or anxiety out there. So, there's I think it's important to understand what site you're getting into, because if you can buy a site that's doing well, that's got AdSense and, other pay-per-click or AdSense driven stuff, or not AdSense, but, affiliate program stuff. You just got to make sure that's not going to just be like, oh, that's a fanciful purchase right now, I'm not going to buy that thing. Like, versus, hey, I've got a problem with gout, or my husband's snoring, I need a solution right now. Like, there's some things that just are going to stay there forever. And so I think that's really the discernment you have to use. Like, there's risk in everything, but I think that you want to find something that's also diversified in its how it makes money. So and the other thing that I think everyone needs to be aware of is, look, content sites, the vast majority of them are driven by organic search, unless they're really good with the data and they can drive cheap traffic to their thing and get some sort of arbitrage. So you have to be prepared to understand, search engine optimization, to be aware that algorithms changes can change the positioning. And so you want to make sure when you're buying a content site that they're legitimate backlinks. They weren't doing things spammy, because, that's also a pitfall that you can get into. I think just, make sure the due diligence is there, make sure that the site has multiple sources of revenue coming in, I think. And then, and then a niche that should do well during, ups and downs. I think those are the main things I would look for. But other than that, I mean, investing in an online business, you want to, where are you going to, if you have extra money, it's either melting and making less than inflation is right now, if you want security, or you're putting it at risk. So you have to ask yourself, am I going to put it into real estate, retail or commercial, or something that's, I got to get cash flow so I can pay the mortgage and make money while I'm holding it till it appreciates again, or I'm investing in stocks. And most stocks, people aren't getting dividends, so they're not getting, they're just trying to get the upside. So it's very precarious. And then the other set is like, if you're investing in a business, then you're buying a business that presumably is making cash. So you're getting money back right away. And you want to, if you trust your instincts as an operator, then you'll see areas that you can improve the business, and new energy coming in often does that, so those are the things that I would caution people. There's lots of good opportunities, but just, don't go in there and step on a landmine unnecessarily, because, everything takes work. Even these content sites, there's nothing truly passive. You have to write interesting content. You have to write, you have to provide something of use if you want to succeed. So I think the days of trying to spam content to these search engines is over. Like, I think the way to succeed with content site is buy a site that you relate to, that you're interested in, so you can write and you're going to be passionate about it, and you're going to create a lot of content, because that's video content, that's, writing, that's whatever, like photographs. So you have to be in it. I think you have to be passionate about it, but then you have a nice long-term cash flow, business that you can roll that cash into something else. You can roll it into another business. You can pay off your mortgages. You can invest in, then you can invest in other things, I think, but I think cash is king. Having cash to deploy and to invest is important. But at some point you have to look at, is my bank now you have to look at, is my bank safe? Is it, because that's a real question too. People have to ask, like, what am I going to do? Yep. I've got like this whole thing about that imploded in the United States. Well, it's not local, the banking industry is global. So there's we're not out of the woods yet. So I think you have to be concerned about, is your bank strong? And there's, hopefully there's not going to be a bank run on it. And then secondly is like, is this, $1 million sitting safely in my bank going to be worth 900,000 next year? Which just do a little bit of like research into the effects of inflation and what real inflation's doing. And you'll go, I got to take this melting ice cube and deploy it into something that's going to make me more. And I think that's just where people are at right now. But it comes down to risk appetite and diversification, which is what we're talking about. I'm not suggesting everyone just pile everything they own into an online business. I think it's a great diversification of unrealized, or capital is just sitting there not being deployed.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's like inflation is, it's like a melting ice cube on your cash sitting in the bank. And then if we layer in, we've had a little bit of a market scare, haven't we? And I think that's why it's great speaking to someone like yourself, David, who's in the States and feels it more than what we would have here in Australia. I don't think any of us Aussies listening to this podcast, we probably don't appreciate that. I think there's a bit of a shot over the bow there, possibly with the banks. That could blow up again. And how do you know your $1 million sitting in the bank is actually safe and secured by that bank? If the bank goes bust, we haven't seen that, but it can happen. So I've had some people, it's funny, working with sophisticated investors and stuff. Some of them have suggested, our mentors over the years have said, you know what, Matt, sometimes, and Liz, sometimes it's worth not having all your money sit, not just because of inflation, but you might be safer off parking your money in a high cash flow business. And obviously websites tick that box in a big way. That's a very smart idea. And like you just said, and I'm sure, again, is why it's cool for us to listen to someone like you with this experience riding through several recessions, but also being so involved in business and business sales. What happens, and the number one rule that luckily I think I was taught many years ago by our personal mentors who are very successful business people is cash flow is king. No matter what happens, if there's inflation, deflation, recession, and man, was he right. It saved our butts. And that's, I think this is really cool hearing it off you, just reiterating that story, that issue, cash flow is king. And also something you said as well, and what we're noticing here is there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast who are real estate investors and they're very successful at it, but that's a dangerous game with the high debt loads, particularly if you're a commercial real estate investor. Are you seeing in America the returns now on commercial real estate are a lot lower or a lot higher risk?
Well, all I see now is everyone's like raising they're saying that's the next shoe to drop is commercial real estate, because the vacancy rates are just astronomical. They're off the charts. And so we're just, that's the data showing that we're like, it's going to be a bloodbath in the States. I mean, there just isn't the commercial real estate vacancy rates are not going down, and the companies are, even though they're announcing they want their employees to come back, they're saying only for 3 days a week. So, and they're just like, everyone's used to using Zoom now and being at home after COVID. So it's a fundamental change in the market. And, like interest rates, they just they're crushing the market on their own. So, it's hard to say. But I'm like, look, if you're a real estate investor and you have a commercial property that's got, leases signed and rent, people, you're good. Like you've got, or renters. It's, the thing is that a lot of the renter or the real estate market had, from 2020 to 2021, 2022, is they got a freeze on their, like people didn't have to pay them legally. So they kind of got hosed there. So like we've already seen real world examples of like by and large, yeah, that was an extreme situation, but it still has consequences that are still unfolding now. So
Yeah.
I think that, real estate is great. Any asset right now in this environment um, is that can hold your value is good, but real estate's values were pumped up because of the money printing that just, got turned on, and everyone had to, spend the money on something. So that's why the stock market went up. That's why, real estate pumped, but it's just not sustainable because that was just government created money, that went through the banks and created the stimulus. So I think that we have to be realistic and look at what the ramifications of that long term. And I think just be, again, diversification is great. Like I think if you own already a lot of property and you've got, you're worried about that, then you might want to take some of that money and turn it into something that, that diversifies your risk. I mean, that's just sensible approach, I think. So
I think that's a really smart point. It's the big take home point here that someone, if you're listening, diversification is probably one of the smartest moves you can make if we're heading into a recession. And obviously cash flow is king. And this is the beauty of websites. And so, David, with you and your team, obviously we train a lot of beginners how to buy websites, do website due diligence and all that sort of stuff. If someone's listening here and they are in that boat where they've got more money, or they've been in real estate for a long time, as a lot of people are, can they come to a broker? Like, can they come to Website Properties and speak to you and your team and not so much get advice, but do you guide them into the first couple of, maybe the first an easy website buy? And what sort of website would that typically look like? Like, is that what you guys specialize in there?
Well, we do have, we have typically our who we represent are sellers that come to us that want to sell their, their online business. And so that's those are typically, if you go to websiteproperties.com, you'll see all our listings. Those are our clients. But we do have buyers. We have buy side agreements with some private equity companies and high net worth individuals. As far as someone coming to us to ask for advice and they want to look at some stuff, I mean, they can email me directly. You can put my email in the show notes, or just dfairley at Website Properties. So I don't mind, we're always there to help people, give them guidance, even if it's not our deal. If they see something else, we can also help them, can represent them, help them buy. But like as far as guidance, it really is going to come down to, understanding what the individual themselves, because everyone's different, and what their sort of risk tolerance is and what their skill sets are and background. Because, it depends on what they're doing. They just want to put invest in something passively, where they don't have to, they only have to spend an hour or two a day. Then that's a different choice than saying, I want to get out of the corporate world and I got a bunch of money and I want to buy myself a job and I need to be making, I need to make 10 grand a month. Well, so then we need to find something different. And, there's lots of other sites that you can operate, e-commerce dropship sites and Amazon FBA sites from anywhere in the world. There's people all over the world living on beaches and making a ton of money and just having, the system. So if you're buying from someone that's got a business like that, it's already set up. They're going to teach you everything. You're going to be able to go in and look at all the data and prove it. And so it just depends on what your interest, I think, on the individual, but also I would always advise people to find something that's at least interesting to them. Better if they're sort of, it's they're passionate about it. And it might just be passionate about running their own business. That's fine too. But it does take work. Like I said earlier on, there's no such thing as a passive site when you put in 100,000 or $1 million. Like, I don't think you should be foolish. And, if you're going to invest in a business and you're going to invest, means investing time and energy and focus. So,
and anyone listening, I'm going to give ourselves a plug here. That's what we're awesome at teaching. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in, say, buying a website with David at Website Properties, like we said, we'll put David's email address and all his details in the show notes here. But also, seriously, if you're new to this and you want to learn how this strategy works, make sure you go and listen to our masterclass on how to buy and sell websites, because we go through the whole strategy and show you the things that you need to learn, because there are things you need to learn. You don't just rush out there, buy a website and expect it to miraculously keep churning along for the next 10 years.
Right.
You're going to have to work at it. And I'd like to say we're really good at teaching beginners that bit. That's the bit that we love specializing in, particularly around content sites. It's one of our passions. But I did want to say, David, I do want to say a big thank you for coming along today. And I think introducing yourselves to our Aussie audience. I know you've traveled and backpacked all around Australia in your younger days, many, many years ago. You even drove a Ford Falcon. So you know Australia well, and you know what our audience are like.
Even hit a kangaroo out in the road.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I've been there, done that. I would like to just end with one last thing. Is I think for people that are looking to invest money, we do get a lot of buyers that come to us and newbies that haven't gone online. So it's good to ask questions. Also, don't get over your ski tips. Don't go out and buy something that's you're over leveraged on or you sunk every last penny into. Don't be foolish. It's better to buy something that even in the worst case scenario, it's not going to bury you. Like if you had $1 million and it's your first time, it doesn't mean you go out and buy a $3 million business. It also doesn't mean you spend $1 million. It means that you maybe look at something in the $300,000 range to start off with. That is going to give you, 100,000. Buying something at $300,000 is it should be buying you at least $100,000 a year in net profit. And so that's a 30 to 35% return on investment. But I always caution people, yourself best. A lot of common sense, business common sense translates online, but just don't get over your ski tips and, just make sure you study everything from that Matt's offering you. And that's always great for us. We'd rather have better educated buyers and sellers come to us. It makes our job easier, but my team and myself, I'm happy to offer any kind of support or feedback to anyone. My time, I don't have a problem having a few minutes for people that are wanting to go this route. I know that it's exciting and exhilarating and also, unnerving. But I do encourage, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've, never worked for anyone. It's just gives you more freedom. And if you do it right, it can really change your life. So I hope that what I was able to offer today was valuable to everyone. And I'm here for anyone to email any questions or just to get in touch regarding listing their own business or, investing in something that we've got, or even just getting some help in targeting an acquisition.
That was awesome, David. Thank you so much. And guys, seriously, you've got the offer there from David Fairley, Website Properties, over 20 years experience buying and selling websites at a professional level, multi-million-dollar websites, but also as an online entrepreneur himself. He's one of the first online entrepreneurs with content sites, buying and selling and renovating. So David knows his stuff and he's there to help. So if you want to reach out to David at Website Properties, make sure you do. And of course, like I said, you do need to get educated. If you're brand new to this, don't just rush out there. As awesome as David is, you still need to learn off us how these websites work. So make sure you do check out our free masterclass on how to buy and sell websites. But thank you so much for coming along today, David. Can't wait to do an update interview with you down the track as well.
Thanks, Matt. It's been a pleasure. Thanks again.